This is Pit Parade, the picture story of the Pittsburgh scene. This morning, January 12, 1949, Pittsburgh awoke to one of this winter's rare snows. It wasn't a deep fall, but enough to make driving really a hazard. Last week, the town was treated to its first taste of television. A mobile transmitter toured the district, and Mr. and Mrs. John Q. Public had the thrilling experience of seeing themselves on the television screen. Maybe you'll recognize yourself in the picture. If you do see yourself, you can boast to your grandchildren that you were among the first Pittsburghers on television. Last night at Syria Mosque, there was a gala opening program, and the East and Midwest television networks were joined by coaxial cable. Until last night, only regular tests were made with a pattern, but from now on, it will be a different story. The finest television programs in the world will be received in every TV home. Hello, I'm John Shumway, and that was part of our very first Pit Parade, our original nightly news digest narrated by Bill Beal, this television station's very first announcer. That was 75 years ago, and this is KDKA-TV's 75th anniversary special.
On the evening of Tuesday, January 11th, 1949, WDTV, Pittsburgh's first television station, came on the air.
That television station is what you know today as KDKA-TV. And this year marks our 75th anniversary on the air.
And over the next hour, we're going to be reminiscing, reflecting, and remembering as we mark this major milestone.
And we invite you to join the celebration.
So we thought we'd start by taking a stroll, quite literally, down memory lane. Welcome to 4400 Bigelow Boulevard here in Oakland. On January 11th, 1949, this is where WDTV broadcast for the very first time. Well, not exactly this. This is the site of the old Syria Mosque, and it was inside that famous performance venue that network television was born. You see, WDTV's first broadcast was a milestone in the TV industry because it provided the first network of coaxial cable feed that included Pittsburgh and 13 other cities, from Boston to St. Louis. 4,000 people attended that first 2.5-hour broadcast, which included an hour-long local show followed by 90 minutes of network programs. But believe it or not, after that first live broadcast, WDTV didn't have permanent studio space for nearly 2 years. It wasn't until November 19th, 1950, that WDTV officially opened its first studio here at the Chamber of Commerce building on 7th Avenue in the heart of downtown. The first show produced here, the Wilkins Amateur Hour. It was also here that WDTV's first live newscast began. A 5-minute newscast in the morning, 10 minutes at noon, and another 5 minutes at 11. And then on August 11th, 1952, WDTV took a major step forward with a 15-minute newscast at 11 called The World Tonight.
Here is The World Tonight.
Now, it was also here where a radio newsman from KQV transitioned to television and began a 35-year run behind the anchor desk. Maybe you've heard of him, Bill Burns.
The United States today announced a project to launch space satellites, satellites that will circle the Earth in the outer atmosphere.
Sure, the space here was nice, but Dumont quickly realized it was time for a bigger, better location. So, in late 1954, the station moved here, One Gateway Center. And just 3 months later, Dumont sold WDTV to Westinghouse. And at 12:01 p.m. on January 31st, 1955, this station officially became KDKA-TV, aligning it with pioneering radio powerhouse KDKA-AM. A lot has happened since then, a lot of news, a lot of newscasters, and a whole lot of memories. And now, nearly 70 years since we moved here to Gateway Center, we're ready for the next leg of this trailblazing TV station's incredible journey. Join us. So that's just a brief overview of KDKA-TV's origins, how we got from point A to point B, so to speak.
But television really is all about what you're seeing on the screen, right?
Now, in the early days of TV, live programs were the big draw, and KDKA still does a ton of local programming.
Heather Abraham has a look back at some of the highlights of 75 years of KDKA programming.
The Wilkins Amateur Hour was just one of the many flagship shows during the early days of WDTV. There was also The Buzz and Bill Show, Kay's Kitchen, The Florence Sando Manson Show, The Gene Conley Show, and Slim Bryant and his Wildcats.
Welcome once again, folks.
In March 1952, just 3 years into existence, WDTV became the first television station in the country to broadcast 24 hours a day, cementing the station's commitment to local programming.
It's time for a happy party!
KDKA has long been committed to helping and educating children with early programs like Happy's Party featuring Ida Mae and Happy, as well as Josie Carey's Storyland.
Don't I know you?
There was also Funsville, Mitzi's Kitty Castle with Mitzi Steiner and Hank Stoll, and in later years, The Trolley Show and Let's Read a Story.
Semi-final playoff action here on Hometown High Q.
In the late 90s, KDKA launched a high school quiz show called Hometown High Q, first with quizmaster Ken Rice, then Rick Dayton. In 2023, it was renamed KD Quiz and is now hosted by Ray Petlin.
All he needs now is a family to support and love him.
And over the past several decades, our Waiting Child feature has helped so many children in foster care find a forever home. It was led for many years by Lynn Hayes Freeland and continues today on Pittsburgh Today Live. The late 50s and early 60s brought rock and roll into American homes on the radio, and Clark Race's weekly dance party did the same on KDKA-TV. And for fans of more standard musical fare, there was the wonderful world of Johnny Costa. The 60s brought several new talk shows to the airwaves, including The John Reed King Show and The Marie Torrey Show, hosted by Marie Torrey, one of America's pioneering female journalists.
The criteria really has to do with looks more than ability.
In 1968, KDKA launched The Yvonne Forston Show, making her the first African-American reporter to have her own TV show. About the same time, another pioneering show hit the airwaves. Vibrations created a weekly forum for the local African-American community.
Did you have any idea what you were starting that afternoon? You said you were too tired to move to another seat on the bus.
Not that day, of course.
Eventually, the show was renamed The Lynn Hayes Freeland Show for its producer and host. When Lynn retired in 2021, so did the show, after more than 50 years on the air.
So pull up a chair and meet me at the corner. Intersection starts right now.
But in 2023, KDKA launched a new weekly community affairs show, Intersections, hosted by KDKA's Director of Community Impact, Lisa Smith.
Evening Magazine.
In the 70s, Evening Magazine gave us a radical new concept, a magazine on television. The show took hosts Dave Durian and Donna Hanover, and later John Burnett, Liz Miles, and Mary Rob Jackson, all over the country and around the world. It also helped launch the career of comedian Dennis Miller, getting him his own show on KDKA. In the early 90s, Evening Magazine ended its 13-year run.
Have a great evening, everybody.
With John and Mary Rob going out the same way Dave and Donna came in a hot air balloon.
This is Your Pittsburgh.
In 2012, a new type of magazine show came to KDKA. Your Pittsburgh was produced and hosted by David Highfield, along with co-host Kimberly Gill and later Susan Copen. They, along with KDKA photographer Ian Smith, took us all over the city to show us what makes Pittsburgh so special. In 1978, a daily afternoon talk show introduced Pittsburgh to Patrice King Brown. She hosted Pittsburgh Today first with Ed Malley, then later with Wayne Van Dyne, John Wade, and John Burnett. The show had its share of fun and silly moments, but also covered serious topics, like this interview Patrice did with an admitted rapist.
I think you know from looking in your eyes the pain and the anguish and the awful thing that this is that you've done. Do you like you?
Pittsburgh Today in the afternoons ended after 11 years, but the concept eventually returned in the early 2000s as a morning talk show called Pittsburgh Today Live. Jennifer Ann Koviak signed on as the first host, along with producer Jill Neely. Then Christine Sorensen took over as host for more than a decade, often with John Burnett by her side.
We are talking about one of my favorite events of the year on today's show.
Yes, it's one of my favorite events, actually.
That's right. I just read your line, didn't I?
Eventually, she handed the reins to me, and for the last few years, David Highfield and I and the entire PTL team have built upon the show's foundation, making it one of KDKA's most popular programs.
I still haven't gotten Wordle today, but it's coming.
She's still working on Wordle.
It's coming. I got a couple letters in the right place.
No, I have faith in you. I think it's going to be good.
And in 2023, I started doing double duty with KDKA's new afternoon talk show, Talk Pittsburgh. Good afternoon and welcome to Talk Pittsburgh. It has been a wonderful labor of love building a new talk show dedicated to you. For more than 20 years, KDKA has also had a strong partnership with the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, including the weekly KDPG Sunday edition, which aired for several years.
From the most trusted names in local news, KDPG Sunday edition.
KDKA also continues to provide unique business news on the Sunday business page. Bill Flanagan began that show in the 90s, and John Delano continued it. It's still going today as a weekly segment in our Sunday morning news.
Good morning, I'm John Delano. Welcome to another edition of the Sunday business page.
In the City of Champions, we've had an abundance of sports programming over the years, from the nightly sports call to the sports showdown to countless other shows dedicated to our sports teams and to sporting events.
Good evening, everyone. On a night where Rudolph saves Christmas for the Pittsburgh Steelers, we welcome you inside our Extra Point show.
At KDKA, informing the public is the core of what we do, but we know giving back to the community is just as important, and nothing symbolizes our long-standing commitment to that more than two of our longest-running traditions.
Over 40,000 tables. We'll have a turkey tomorrow. We'll have a Thanksgiving tomorrow.
The KDKA Turkey Fund began in 1982 when Al Julius got an idea from a viewer to make sure all of our neighbors in need have a warm Thanksgiving meal. Wayne Van Dyne and Yvonne Zanos later picked up Al's mantle, and now Team PTL leads the charge every fall, with all of us here at KDKA committed to continuing the mission year after year, raising more than $20 million since that first year.
Now let's go to George Eisenhower. I understand we have a new total. George?
Our latest total is $745,836.
But perhaps KDKA's greatest community service project is the Free Care Fund Telethon for UPMC Children's Hospital. Since 1954, KDKA has hosted the telethon during the holidays with the goal of making sure no child is denied medical care. KDKA's commitment to the Free Care Fund continues today with the 2023 broadcast marking our 70th annual telethon.
Let's have it.
$1,959,760.
My goodness.
Fantastic.
KDKA-TV, along with KDKA Radio and the former Pittsburgh Press, have helped to raise more than $70 million for the Free Care Fund over the past 7 decades. All of it thanks to the power of local programming. It really is incredible when you stop and think about all of the hours of local TV KDKA has produced in 75 years, not to mention all of the people who have had a hand in making it. I'm so honored to be part of it.
All right, time for a break, but we've only just begun.
Up next, a look back at some of the biggest news events we've covered
as KDKA-TV's 75th anniversary special continues.
Here's to a hillsider's view. Here's to a jackpot for you. Here's to Mazeroski's wall and pounding a perfect ball. Here's to walking the beat, bright colored trolleys on cobblestone streets. Here's to working the swing where the iron pours and steel is king. Here's to our Super Bowl team, the spunk and the muscle that built us a dream. Two together as one, we'll get the job done, whatever we do.
Welcome back to KDKA-TV's 75th anniversary special. We begin with breaking news. How many times do you think we've said that over the years?
A lot, and that's because there's a lot of news to cover in Western Pennsylvania.
And as Ross Gadati shows us, KDKA has been on the scene of it from the very beginning.
September 1953, a man climbed to the top of the Smithfield Street Bridge intending to jump. Astonishingly, WDTV photographer Charlie Boyle climbed up there with him and eventually helped to bring him down safely.
What possessed you to go up on the bridge here? Worried. What are you worried about, Jim? Money.
April 1956, TWA Flight 400 crashing near Greater Pitt, killing 22 people. There were 14 survivors, and Bill Burns interviewed them in their hospital beds at Sewickley Hospital.
Did you have any warning at all that you were going to crash?
No, no warning at all.
Nearly 40 years later, KDKA was yet again on the scene of another horrific plane crash after U.S. Air Flight 427 crashed on approach to Pittsburgh International Airport in 1994, killing all 132 people on board.
Covered a number of plane crashes over the years being in this business, but I have never heard descriptions such as I have heard this evening.
In 1979, KDKA was on the air within hours after the accident at 3 Mile Island.
Officials have declared an emergency at the crippled 3 Mile Island nuclear power station near Harrisburg.
We broke into programming in 1988 when an Ashland oil storage tank near Jefferson Hills split wide open, spilling millions of gallons of oil into the Monongahela River, and we stayed on the air for hours on end in 2001 during the terrorist attacks of 9/11.
It's an unbelievable situation for Americans to face. It's something that we have never really dealt with since the bombing of Pearl Harbor so many years ago.
We've reported on countless local crimes that made national news. The Richard Baumhammer's murder spree in 2000.
This was a spree of gunfire stretching across 2 counties to the south and west of Pittsburgh.
The killings at LA Fitness in Collier Township in 2009. The stabbing spree at Franklin Regional High School in Murraysville in 2014. And in 2018, the tragedy at the Tree of Life Synagogue in Squirrel Hill.
And I can confirm that 11 people lost their lives today at Tree of Life Synagogue at the hands of this gunman.
We were here to help Pittsburgh navigate that day, as well as some of the city's other darkest days, to include the deaths of 2 sitting mayors, Richard Caligiuri in 1988.
Richard Caligiuri had many great accomplishments during his life.
And Bob O'Connor in 2006.
O'Connor lived his dream, even if only for a few months. His legacy, though, will endure for much longer.
As well as the murders of 3 Pittsburgh police officers in Stanton Heights in 2009.
It is an historic time here in Pittsburgh, expected to be the largest procession and the largest memorial service ever in the city of Pittsburgh.
And we've been here for some rather miraculous times as well.
All 9 are alive.
Including in 2002, when a group of 9 miners survived being trapped in the flooded Q Creek mine in Somerset County for more than 78 hours. And 20 years later, in 2022, when 9 people survived when the Fern Hollow Bridge collapsed with 5 vehicles and a bus on it.
You can see into the ravine. There are cars at the bottom. It's kind of hard to tell from the angle we're at, but there are several cars at the bottom, really right where the bridge folded in.
Here, there is no such thing as separation of church and state.
We have traveled around the world on assignment. Harold Hayes in the Middle East during the First Gulf War. Mary Rob Jackson in Vietnam 20 years after the fall of Saigon. And Ray Tannehill in Russia. And Patty Burns at the Vatican with a group of local Catholics on pilgrimage.
A pilgrimage that brings them here to Rome, Italy, and the visible center of the Roman Catholic Church, St. Peter's Basilica, and the Vatican.
Marie Torrey, Harold Hayes, Stacy Smith also would make trips to the Vatican at various times. Stacy even got a chance to meet the Pope, Pope John Paul, in person. In 1991, Stacy also went to Israel with a group of local Jews on a trip called Homecoming 91.
The lives of the people of Israel cannot be separated from their religions, and their religions cannot be separated from this land.
Sometimes the news came to us.
Paul Martino is next.
In 2005, a water main break just outside of KDKA studios left us flooded.
This is the basement under KDKA, actually the garage where we keep the trucks that enable us to go live, like this one.
Part of KDKA's legacy was built on covering politics, like the late 60s when Bill Burns and Al McDowell interviewed an unemployed actor by the name of Ronald Reagan as he built a new career in politics.
Why are you here, Mr. Reagan? You're a long way from the sunny shores of California. Well, actually, on my way to Washington.
Over the years, we've reported on several national political conventions.
The question is whether Donald Trump has the answers that voters will buy.
And also hosted many local candidates' debates, KDKA has also had a long commitment to groundbreaking medical news, from covering Dr. Jonas Salk's work on the polio vaccine in the 1950s to Dr. Thomas Starzl's work on organ transplants in the 1980s.
It was 25 years ago Starzl started to rewrite the medical books.
To in 2018, when a local man became the first patient in the country to receive the first new treatment for ALS in 20 years.
After today, several other patients here in Pittsburgh are also in line to get the new treatment.
And the celebrities and dignitaries we've interviewed here, we couldn't begin to name all of them, but some of the highlights include the Beatles at the height of Beatlemania.
How do you describe the feeling you get when they sing?
You know, it's the same, you got about 2 lunatics and a couple of thousand.
As well as Nelson Mandela, Prince Charles, Jimmy Carter, Louis Armstrong, Joan Crawford, Oprah, Christina Aguilera, and Stevie Wonder.
That's why I'll always be around.
Some incredible memories there, and not even a fraction of what we've covered over the past 75 years. Still, some really important moments in Pittsburgh and KDKA history.
You know what else we all get to witness every day? The weather.
And up next, we relive our coverage of some of the area's major weather events.
When KDKA-TV's 75th anniversary special continues.
Weather has been a part of KDK's history since the very first pit parade back on January 12th, 1949. The forecast that night, by the way, called for rain and sleet overnight with a low of 30.
Yeah, not bad considering some of the major weather disasters we've covered. Here's First Alert meteorologist Ron Smiley.
Over the past 75 years, there's been countless weather disasters, including some pretty major ones.
This was the ticket booth at the Spotlight 88 drive-in. What's left of the ticket booth was found in those trees back there.
But perhaps none more devastating than the deadly tornado outbreak of May 31st, 1985.
Well, Ray, we have a disaster on our hands tonight in Big Beaver Borough. I'm standing in front of what was a shopping center.
19 tornadoes touched down in western Pennsylvania that day, destroying entire towns.
Albion's gone.
Killing 75 people and injuring some 800 more.
We had ideal conditions yesterday, there's no doubt about it. Just take a look at it and you see why it happened.
On June 2nd, 1998, tornadoes cut another path of destruction across the area.
This is ground zero, Allegheny County right now under a tornado warning.
Touching down on Mount Washington, our tower cam caught the funnel cloud heading straight for the area. We've also covered hurricanes, like in 1989 when John Shumway went to South Carolina and reported from the front lines of Hurricane Hugo.
There's already a lot of trees down around town, a lot of power lines around town. There's virtually no power whatsoever in the city of Charleston.
And in 2004, when the remnants of Hurricane Ivan hit the Pittsburgh area, leaving several towns underwater.
I'm told by the old timers around here, this is a lot worse.
In a city built on three rivers, there have been far too many floods to count over the past 75 years, including the flood of 1996.
We went up about 2 feet or so between midnight and 2 o'clock this morning, Joe.
Right. And of course, we can't talk about weather in Pittsburgh without discussing the blizzards of 1950 and 1993.
Don't go out unless you absolutely have to.
And the winter storm of 2010, which became known as Snowmageddon. In fact, all three of those snowstorms still stand as 3 of the top 4 largest snowstorms on record in Pittsburgh history. Yes, we've clearly seen all kinds of weather events here over the past 75 years, but through it all, our top priority has been to keep you informed and safe, something we take very seriously and never take for granted.
Time for another quick break, but when we come back,
a look back at some of the many journalists who've called KDKA home.
When KDKA-TV's 75th anniversary special continues.
We're on the scene, we work for you. We are the team of Eyewitness News. We're on the job, we're on the line. We bring it home to you on time. Teamwork brings us together. Nobody does it better. KDKA-TV. The team that brings it home. Eyewitness News.
Roll A, up Mike Q. Petty.
News Pittsburgh makes medical history again.
Stand by camera, warning parade.
Phone in here on Angel 1.
Let's go, Marty. We'll shoot from a 4-player swap.
The Senate's expected to vote this afternoon.
Westmoreland County, one of the
All of this will be out of here soon.
There's a way that you can save.
And white.
Great weather tomorrow. We'll have plenty of...
Keep it moving, Victor.
1.
Teamwork brings us together. And nobody does it better. KDKA-TV. The team that brings it home. Eyewitness News.
Welcome back to KDKA-TV's 75th anniversary special. Bill Beal has the distinction of being the first announcer on this station.
But he's just one of many in a long line of broadcasters who've brought you the news and other programming over the last 75 years.
When Stacey Smith retired back in 2021, he'd been with KDKA for 38 years, edging out Bill Burns by 3 years as the longest-serving news anchor in KDKA history.
So who better to take us on a journey through 75 years of KDKA newscasters?
For 35 and a half years, Bill Burns was the face of KDKA News. His first broadcast was on July the 19th, 1953, when KDKA was still known as WDTV.
The Aluminum Company of America has reached a wage settlement with the United Steelworkers.
Bill took over for Dave Murray, and as he once recalled, the newsroom staff of the early 50s was slim.
There were only 2 of us in the newsroom, news editor George Thomas and myself.
In 1954, when Westinghouse bought WDTV and changed the call letters to KDKA, the news department expanded.
This is Dave Cossack. This is Paul Moyer.
Also among the new crop of reporters, broadcasting pioneers Al McDowell and Paul Long. In the 1960s, Pittsburghers woke up to morning news with Don Riggs and Marcy Lynn Pugh.
7:28 and 15 seconds is the time. This is daybreak.
Also during the 60s, KDKA led the way in breaking barriers, becoming one of the first stations to hire African-American reporters.
Vic Miles reporting.
This is Ann Jordan reporting.
And giving more prominent roles to female journalists, including Marie Torrey.
How long have you been fighting, Cassius?
I've been fighting 11 years.
As well as Eleanor Shano.
But the weatherman says that we can expect rain both tonight and tomorrow.
And Yvonne Forston. The 70s brought 2 legendary newscasters to KDKA, one with a very familiar name.
Good afternoon. I'm Patty Burns with the Midday News.
Bill Burns' daughter, Patty, joined KDKA in 1974. And just a few years later...
Eyewitness News at noon with Bill Burns, Patty Burns.
Bill and Patty were paired as co-anchors on the Noon News, becoming the first father-daughter anchor team in the country. Their newscast, which viewers affectionately called Patty and Daddy, would continue for more than a decade. One of Patty's other co-anchors at the time was a broadcasting giant in his own right.
As a matter of fact, it was 25 years ago that Dr. Starzl first gave someone a second chance by performing a kidney transplant.
Ray Tannehill joined KDKA in the late 70s and became a trusted newscaster here for nearly 25 years. In fact, the late 70s and 80s brought many newscasters to KDKA who would go on to have long careers here. Among them, Lynn Hayes Freeland, Ron Klink, Harold Hayes, Mary Rob Jackson, Ralph Iannotti, Paul Martino, Brenda Waters, Dave Crawley, John Shumway, and me.
It is called Live Aid. It will be watched by more than 1 billion people worldwide.
During my 38 years at KDKA, I shared the anchor desk with many co-anchors, including, for more than 20 years, with Patrice King Brown.
Good evening. It is now 45 hours since a mine accident.
In the 90s, Ken Rice and Jennifer Ankoviak brought KDKA's 5 o'clock news to life.
Good evening. Tonight, several families in turmoil.
And reporters including David Highfield, Andy Sheehan, John Delano, Mary Barecki, and Don Cannon joined the KDKA news team. The first decade of the new millennium brought another new crop of reporters to KDKA, including Bob Allen, Ross Gadati, Dr. Maria Simbra, Kim Gable, Heather Abraham, and the husband and wife duo of Marty Griffin and Christine Sorensen.
Hi, honey.
It's fun to have you here.
Let's kiss.
It's
never happened before.
And in just the past decade, more than 20 new faces have joined the KDKA team, who now bring you the news every day.
For the sports scene tonight.
In the early days, Ray Scott was a one-man sports department. Over the years, the KDKA sports team has included names like Bob Prince, Bill Curry, John Sanders, John Staggerwald, Rich Walsh, Josh Taylor, and Bob Pompiani.
They remain undefeated at home during the 85-86 campaign.
With more than 40 years at KDKA, Bob is currently the station's longest-serving on-air talent and is one of the most recognizable names in Pittsburgh sports broadcasting.
Normal high this time of year runs 80 degrees.
For more than 30 years, when Pittsburghers wanted to know the weather, they turned to KDKA Chief Meteorologist Bob Kutzma. Over the years, the KDKA weather team has also included other trusted forecasters like Larry Richard, John Burnett, Jeff Rosella, and Dennis Bowman. And now the First Alert weather team of Ron Smiley, Ray Petlin, Kristen Emery, Mary Hours, and Felicia Woody help keep you weather aware.
Why don't they take the boulders away? Because if they do, perhaps more of the wall will come down. And what about the homes up above?
When it comes to consumer news, no one did it better than Wayne Van Dyne, Lynn Sawyer, Bill Flanagan, and Yvonne Zanos.
I did get it to work, but it takes a lot of work to get it to work.
The news is not always bad news.
His name is William Pope. He's 80 years old now.
For many years, in a segment called On a Positive Note, Brenda Waters delivered good news from the community. Brenda revived it in 2020, and after she retired, Kim Gable has continued to highlight all the positive stories happening across the area, with many of those stories now featured on KDKA's 7:30 News with Megan Schiller. And speaking of features, for decades, Dave Crawley had the market cornered with his fantastic stories from KD Country.
James Street has been busy since colonial times when horse-drawn wagons branched off the Northern Pike on the way from Monroeville to Turtle Creek.
And finally, for hard-hitting commentary with the side of theatrics, Al Julius was in a class of his own.
Golden rule of politics is he who has the gold, he who spreads the gold, rules.
While the faces that bring you the news on KDKA have changed over the years, one thing has remained the same. KDKA remains committed to fair and honest reporting, covering the issues that are important to you, and serving the community, which we have been proud to be a part of for the past 75 years.
We also need to mention all of the countless other KDKA-TV employees who've worked here over the past 75 years behind the scenes.
It takes way more than those of us who you see on TV every day to make this station hum all these years.
It takes news producers, photographers, assignment editors, video editors, directors, and studio crew.
Not to mention everyone in other departments like engineering, creative services, programming, sales, traffic, human resources, and master control.
We salute everyone who's played a role here and been a part of the KDKA-TV family.
Up next, two of KDKA's longest-serving anchor teams reunite.
And we'll give you a hint, we're one of them.
When KDKA-TV's 75th anniversary special continues.
When we're putting together our newscast, you're the one we put first.
We think perhaps that's why you've kept us #1. We cover and uncover more stories that you want to know about. And try to help make our community an even better place to live. At KD, we believe it's the quality of our coverage that counts. So we're working harder than ever because what we have to do is keep up with you. See us tonight.
In 75 years, KDKA-TV has been blessed with a lot of longtime employees and a few longtime anchor teams.
This year marks 18 years, if you can believe it, that Christine and I have anchored the news together. We are currently the longest-serving anchor team in Pittsburgh.
But before us, 2 other KDKA anchor teams had long runs together.
Yeah, Patty Burns and Ray Tannehill, and Stacy Smith and Patrice King Brown.
We recently sat down with Stacy and Patrice to reflect on working here and working together.
Stacy, you've been gone, is it 2 years? 2 years?
A little over 2 years.
Patrice, it's 10 years?
It is, yes.
What do you miss about it?
Basically just doing the news, I still miss. I miss the opportunity to tell the viewer at home what is going on that day.
One of the things is the camaraderie in the newsroom. Other people would come through here or come into the station to work and they would say, this newsroom feels different than other newsrooms. You know, and we worked hard and we were really proud of the work that we did. And, you know, I think that the standards were very high and we worked hard at keeping them high. It was really very important. Right?
Well, and when you were fortunate to have lengthy careers as you did here, and as we are hopefully going to continue for at least a little bit longer, you do literally, somebody said it recently, you grew up together. You are there for each other when you're getting married and having kids and having grandkids and all of life's events. You're sharing it with this work family. And I think in other places where you may not have that type of career longevity, it's a more unusual thing. So I think we may take it for granted, but it's special. It's absolutely special. When I think of the two of you on the air together, this is just part of working in television news. Some crises come to mind and how we navigated those as a news team. And I think of you guys with your coverage being carried nationally after the crash of U.S. Air Flight 427. When you reflect on your careers, is that where your minds go, to those moments of incredible stress where you're pushed to your limits as a journalist?
A lot of it, and you two know this, is how well you work with your co-anchor. You start this relationship on the set, and soon when you get to the breaking news, you know when the other person is starting to run out of not necessarily steam, but the thought process for the breaking news, and the other one knows when to jump in and carry the story on, and you yin and yang it like that, and we did a pretty good job of it like that.
I think that we did. There was.
You did.
I think that it was something that, I mean, obviously we're working at learning early on, but when you think of some of the big moments, like that, the plane crash, and what you don't want to do in something like that is sensationalize it, because it is sensational enough.
For us, I remember it was early on when I started anchoring the 5 with you, it was the 3 police officers in Stanton Heights who were killed.
Yes.
That we really, you know, had just to, it was such a tough story because it
very difficult story for you guys.
It was so tough and just so sad. We are part of this community, so we're feeling that too.
Yeah, we're talking about 75 years of KDKA.
Yeah.
And the changes that have been made in broadcasting altogether. First of all, the way the studio is right now, and the kind of cameras, that there's now no one behind the camera, so to speak. I mean, actually operating the camera.
Yeah, the robotic.
when I started in broadcasting, we were still using film. Then we went to tape, and when we came here, we were going from 3/4 to half-inch tape, and then it goes now it's digital, and you can use your phone out in the field to do everything. But through all of these changes, it still comes down to people want to connect with that person who was on television more than anything else, or what that station represents and how they represent themselves.
I think ultimately KDKA is more than just a TV station. It is a big part of this community. The call letters, the missions like the Free Care Fund, and you know, the Turkey Fund Drive. I mean, all of those are just such a big part of this community, and connecting with people ultimately is what it comes down to.
So you had Katie's Army when I first got here. Al Julia started the Turkey Fund. the free care fund had already started 70 years ago. And so this station's always connected so much with the viewer at home.
But I think there's still a unique connection that KDK has with this city, and it's reflected in many ways through our charitable partnerships and in our news coverage.
It's amazing that it is 75 years, and I think of the people, the stories that have gone through here, the people who have come through, and the gift that it is to the city, but also how appreciative the city is. Pittsburgh has also been a gift to all of us because they've been so supportive and just friendly and warm and loving. And now, 75 years they've given to the station as well.
You can't go across this country and not say call letters KDKA.
Right.
Without people knowing, if they're in broadcasting especially, they know those 4 letters more than any other letters in the country.
For sure.
Yep.
They created an amazing situation in 1949 and then went forward, and we were just trying to uphold all that.
Oh, it was so great to see both of them and together again.
It really was, and so great to have you at home along for the ride.
We've covered a lot in this special, but there's one more thing that'll make it a real winner.
Yeah, we are reliving some of the greatest moments in 75 years of covering sports in the City of Champions.
When KDKA-TV's 75th anniversary special continues.
For more years than anyone else, KDKA-TV 2 has been part of Pittsburgh. That's the hometown advantage.
Pittsburgh's grown so much since I was a kid in Oil City.
It's now home to me. I've put down roots.
In fact, more than 90% of us have lived here at least 10 years.
And there's always a positive story in every neighborhood.
Only one station has the experience to know Pittsburgh top to bottom. Only KDKA-TV 2, the hometown advantage.
KDKA-TV's 75th anniversary special continues now with a topic all Pittsburghers can agree on: our love for our sports teams.
Yeah, we bleed black and gold, and we don't care who knows it.
And there's no one better to help us relive some of the greatest moments in sports over the past 75 years than a man who's witnessed 42 years of it firsthand.
KDK Sports Director Bob Pompiani.
Sports has always had a way of unifying this city, and it's had a home here on KDKA since the very beginning. KDKA has been here to help you witness 3 of the Pirates' 5 World Series championships. In 1960,
what was the pitch you hit, Bill? It was a high fastball. A high fastball. That did it, and the Pirates are the world's champions.
As well as 1971 and 79.
If you can hear me at all, I'm here at the Chatham Center at the Hyatt House at a place appropriately called the Whiskey Rebellion. And it's full of avid Pirate fans. What do you think of those Pirates?
We've also been here for all 6 of the Steelers' Super Bowl championships, starting with the Super Steelers dynasty of the 1970s.
And now that the game itself is over, the Pittsburgh Steelers are still answering thousands of questions from all the news media who've been here all week long.
And the Steelers of the new millennium.
You'll also get a chance to see that Vince Lombardi trophy, the all-time record number 6.
And we've watched as the Penguins skated away with the Stanley Cup 5 different times. First back-to-back in the early 1990s.
Now Ulf Samuelson's holding the cup up now back here.
And then 3 times in the last 15 years.
Back-to-back cups for the Penguins, and I'm with the guy that made it happen.
As fans, we often love our team's venues as much as we love the team, and it shows. In 2001, we all watched the implosion of Three Rivers Stadium, and then later marveled at the 2 new stadiums that replaced it on the North Shore. And less than a decade later, we saw the Penguins move across the street to a new home while saying farewell to the iconic Civic Arena.
Saturday's demolition took down the first panel. There will be many more like it.
And even though it's been more than 50 years since Forbes Field stood in Oakland, fans still gather every fall at what remains at the outfield wall to remember Maz's 1960 walk-off World Series game-winning home run there. Win or lose, Pittsburgh sports fans are always very passionate about their teams. I gotta love that part. It's just part of what has made my job here at KDK for nearly 42 of the station's 75 years so incredible. To be able to share so many of these magnificent moments with all of you, it's really been my honor.
All right, stay with us. We have one more thing up our sleeves.
As we close our celebration of KDKA's 75th anniversary.
Turn around, take a look at all you found. Here you are home. This is your home. Smiling faces, old familiar places of your home. This is your home. This is your home.
On January 11th, 1949, when WDTV aired its first live broadcast, the one-hour special included a skit with a character named Pa Pitt, played by veteran KDKA radio host Ed Shaughnessy.
In the closing moments of the program, Pa Pitt delivered a speech about this brave new world of network television that was born that night.
And so as we come to the close of this program, 75 years later, we wanted to share those timeless words once again.
We'll all remember tonight.
Not only for its laughter,
its thrilling entertainment,
and exciting moments,
but for the significance in our lives.
Tonight, we are standing on the threshold
of a new era.
A wondrous future
that may well knit the peoples of all the world
into one bond of brotherhood.
Like the golden spike that linked the nation by rail.
It's the Golden Triangle of Pittsburgh.
That symbolizes the electronic link in the largest television network in history.
Well, to say that a lot has changed in local television in 75 years is something of an understatement.
Yeah, and of course, who knows how it'll change in another 75 years.
One thing that will never change, though, our commitment to you.
To all of you who've watched KDKA-TV all these years, we simply cannot thank you enough.
Thank you for turning to us, for trusting us, and for letting us be part of your lives.
It's a responsibility all of us here at KDKA-TV have taken very seriously for the past 75 years.
Thanks again for watching. We'll see you on the news.
This is Bill Burns wishing you good night, good luck, and good news tomorrow.